Reverend Maurene's title today is The Truth Will Set You Free, with the postscript of how Pinocchio became a real boy.
Thank you, Rob. Yes, this is the little book, and this is the Walt Disney version, which is different than the original Italian version. But we know Walt Disney, everybody lives happily ever after. Just what we like. So, give me a second here. Okay. You know, I believe that we're here for the delight of God. So we have to be delightful. And you know, the story of Pinocchio, before I get into it, it's just a little background, is transformation. And when we see transformation on a spiritual level, the mental level, that's when we will see it on the physical level, and not vice versa. We believe in cause and effect. So today I'm going to continue with this kind of lighthearted approach to science of mind, using stories to illustrate some of these secrets of the ages that parents taught their children, first orally and then later in books. So I'm going to talk about the little puppet Pinocchio. And the presence of fantasy, magic, enchantment, mythical beings has always fascinated kids of all ages, including me. But it's a way to illuminate our consciousness, and it's a way to help us understand our subconscious. So 2 weeks ago, you remember, if you were here, Reverend Kate talked about Rumpelstiltskin. And the message there, you know, was that the heroine, she was not a victim. She changed the agreement with Rumpelstiltskin. She sought out ways to resolve the issue, and she did. She was able to get his name, save her child. And last week, I talked about happiness, and I mentioned 2 fairy tales. One was a fairy tale of the frog and the princess, because in high school, moving from Wyoming out to Orange County, I was kind of like the ugly frog. You know, I felt like a frog. I didn't fit in, but I became a princess when a boy from another high school invited me to the prom. And so I had my night of being a princess, and my mother was my fairy godmother. She bought me some shoes and a dress to match. So I had my Cinderella theme. And you know, we each create our own fairy tales. Again, they've been passed down for hundreds of years, and mostly to teach us about society and how to live. But life itself is the most wonderful fairy tale. First, two jokes, that's all. This is from Mark Twain. Bless his heart, he said, if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. So there was a young child, and the child asked, Daddy, do all fairy tales begin with once upon a time? Well, no. There are a whole series of fairy tales that begin with, if elected, I promise. So, yes, we know that one. And the story of Pinocchio, you know, he's got this character, Jiminy Cricket, who represents his conscience, and Geppetto, his father, Figaro, the cat, the friendly cat, the blue fairy with her magical support, Honest John, Stromboli. These were evil influences. These are symbols in literature, and you see them in Carl Jung, who was a Swiss psychotherapist and psychologist, he said, these are part of the unconscious collective. We all understand good and evil. We all understand mother, father. These are elements for our subconscious. And Hans Christian Andersen, he was a Danish writer, and he was best known for his fairy tales, The Little Mermaid, Emperor's New Clothes, Steadfast Tin Soldier, The Princess and the Pea, remember that one? The Ugly Duckling, The Little Match Girl, in Thumbelina? Well, he said, life itself is the most wonderful tale. Everyone's life is a fairy tale written by God's fingers. So let's get into the story. It was actually written by an Italian man, Carlo Collodi, in 1883. And it begins where in Italy, this Jiminy Cricket arrives at the shop of the woodworker and toy maker named Geppetto, who creates a puppet he names Pinocchio. He was a poor man, but he wanted to carve himself a marionette in order to make a living as a puppeteer. He was given a piece of enchanted wood, so he decided, instead of making beautiful toys for other children, he'd make a boy for himself because he had no children. Now, the name Geppetto in Italian means God will increase. So he had a belief that God was going to increase, and he gave his little marionette movable arms and legs, and as he fell asleep, he wished upon a star. Hence the song. He wished for Pinocchio to become a real boy. And late that night, the Blue Fairy visited the workshop, and she brought Pinocchio to life. But he remained a puppet. And she told him if he proved himself to be brave and truthful and unselfish, he would become a real boy. So Jiminy is assigned by the Blue Fairy to be Pinocchio's conscience. And don't you love that? Jiminy, I mean, as a kid, I liked Jiminy Cricket better than Pinocchio. You know? And Jiminy was supposed to guide him in right and wrong. Well, Geppetto awakens because he hears this noise, and he looks and he's overjoyed because he discovers Pinocchio is alive and he's on his way to becoming a real boy. So along this journey, Pinocchio encounters several characters representing temptations. Now what happens is the next morning while walking to school, of course he's got to go to school, Pinocchio's led astray by a con artist, this guy named Honest John, what a name, and his sidekick, Getting the Cat, and they convince him to join Stromboli's puppet show. Despite Jiminy's protestations, Pinocchio becomes Stromboli's star attraction. Here's a puppet without strings. And the Blue Fairy appears, and Pinocchio lies about what happened to him, and his nose starts to grow. The Blue Fairy does restore his nose and frees him, but warns him she can't help him any further. So meanwhile, this mysterious coachman hires Honest John to find disobedient and naughty boys and take them to this island. So what happens, it's called Pleasure Island. So on the way to the island, Pinocchio befriends a delinquent boy named Lampwick, and at the Pleasure Island, without rules or authority, they get in drinking and smoking and fighting and vandalism. And Jiminy finds Pinocchio in the bar playing pool, and the two of them have a falling out. So Jiminy tries leaving Pleasure Island, but he discovers that the island has a horrible curse. There's this cursed water, alcohol, that transforms its drinkers into animals, donkeys, jackasses, he calls them. And these jackasses are then sold by the coachman into slave labor. So Pinocchio starts to turn, and his ears are that of a donkey and a tail, but he doesn't turn all the way, and he leaves. So he was knocked further into an animal. So he goes home, and Pinocchio and Jiminy find Geppetto's workshop deserted, and they obtain a letter from the Blue Fairy in the form of a dove stating Geppetto had sailed to Pleasure Island in search of Pinocchio, but he was swallowed. He was swallowed by a gigantic whale. named Monstro, and he's trapped in his belly. So, determined to rescue his father, Pinocchio jumps into the sea and is swallowed by Monstro. He's reunited with Geppetto, and Pinocchio devises a scheme to wake Monstro and have him sneeze and allow him to escape. But the whale chases him and destroys the raft with his tail. Pinocchio selflessly pulls Geppetto to safety, but Monstro crashes and kills Pinocchio. So back home, they take Pinocchio, Geppetto, Jiminy, Figaro, Cleo is the fish. They mourn Pinocchio. Now, having succeeded in proving himself brave, truthful, and unselfish, Pinocchio's revived and turned into a real human boy by the Blue Fairy, much to everybody's joy. And as the group celebrates, Jiminy steps outside to thank the Blue Fairy, and he's rewarded with a solid gold badge. Remember that. He gets a little badge, and that certifies him as an official conscience. Now, I don't know if some of you saw the movie Artificial Intelligence by Steven Spielberg. I think it was 2001. Well, it's a story of artificial intelligence and a little boy who is actually, they don't call him a robot, but he looks real, but he is a robot and he wants to become a real boy. It's a really amazing movie, I mean, if you haven't seen it. And the Blue Fairy is voiced by Meryl Streep. And it has questions about, killing, a sentient being. Like, is this little boy a sentient being? So it's the Blue Fairy has been explored in several aspects of our culture, and the Blue Fairy is more than a fairy. The Blue Fairy usually represents what we call something on high, that higher consciousness, God, Holy Spirit. That's what she is. So these stories, they all reflect different aspects of ourselves and help us, guide us to evolve to a higher consciousness. Now, Ernest Holmes said that there is a divine urge within everyone to know more, to be more, and to express more. And the thing we're searching with is the thing we are searching with, that we're searching for is what we're searching with. So we are spirit expressing. We're searching for it, but it is us. He says, out there in the vast reaches of outer space and here in the equally vast reaches of inner space, everything is in order. Our task is to begin to understand that the universal mind is resident everywhere and also of necessity within us. Our prayer is that the truth be made known, that it cannot fail to be revealed. He says our time should be devoted to knowing the truth that sets us, humanity, free from the problems of ignorance. Truth alone can bring enlightenment. I'm talking about spiritual truth, metaphysical truth. Truth from a metaphysical standpoint is knowing we're one, that we are loved. We're more powerful than we can imagine. We use the power of the mind of God. And spiritual laws govern us. And when we align with this love in service to others and taking responsibility for our lives, then we too transform, we evolve, we mature. This is through what's often called the renewing of our minds. Forever. This keeps going on. It doesn't stop, get to 9th grade and all of a sudden you're done. So Ernest Holmes, his teaching is based on the belief that God, he said, as universal mind, spirit, intelligence, is the origin of everything. And it's the law of cause and effect. So the metaphysical lessons from Pinocchio, these were originally taught to children, but they're good lessons for all of us. one lesson was the big dream. He dreamt he wanted to be a boy. Now, was his dream too big? Some people have a dream and they feel, well, my dream is too big. It's never going to happen, and they don't go for it. Do you dream big? There's no growth unless we act outside the box. And if we just repeat the past, we're stagnating. So yes, Pinocchio makes mistakes. We all make mistakes, And like the prodigal son, we come back to the father. And this is Pinocchio who comes back. And this is the same story if you read the Odyssey in high school. It's a fellow named Odysseus, and he's left the Trojan War, and he's seeking to get home to his wife. I think her name was Penelope. And he spends 10 years going through different trials and tribulations to get back. But evolving, transforming, is a process of letting go of the past, letting go of who you are to be someone you knew. Let go of the past, be in the present, be that new person. Now, cause and effect tells us there's no devil. There's only cause and effect. If you speak lies, then your life is based on falsities. What are you going to receive if your life is based on falsities? Henry David Thoreau said, follow your dreams, because if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with the success unexpected in common hours. And he said, things do not change, we change. Again, Science of Mind emphasizes intuition, going within, listening to that still small voice, and following that dream, that intuition, going for it. So it's your birthright to be successful and healthy, beautiful, energetic. It's your birthright to be prosperous. Follow that star as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else. It's interesting, Einstein said, logic will take you from A to B, but imagination will take you anywhere. Another thing about Pinocchio, don't be enticed by people who want to control you or steal from you. And don't drink liquids that turn you into an ass. So Pinocchio and the wayward boys were turned into donkeys, and he was almost sold into slavery. But he listened to his conscience. And the other thing that I think most Italians want to teach their children is listen to your mother, your father, your parents, your friends who love you, and think of someone other than yourself and give back. Here's another Mark Twain. He said, keep away from people who try to belittle your ambitions. Small people always do that, but the really great people make you feel that you too can become great. So I just wanted to thank Joe for When You Wish Upon a Star, because this was written, well, I just wanted to give credit. Lee Harline wrote, and Cliff Edwards sang it. Cliff Edwards was also the voice of Jiminy Cricket. So cute. But let me just quickly, when you wish upon a star, it makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you. If that heart is in your dream, no request is too extreme. When you wish upon a star, as dreamers do, fate is kind. She brings to those who love the sweet fulfillment of their secret longing. Like a bolt out of the blue, faith steps in and sees you through. When you wish upon a star, your dreams come true. And again, a star or a fairy, that's an archetype again for a higher power. That intuition within you that tells you, shows you, kind of like your conscience, but it helps you along the way. You know, and Pinocchio, yeah, he was naive. He was an innocent little wooden boy, and we shouldn't, you know, it was said of Disney that they liked the way he portrayed him because it was different in the original story, but they showed that Pinocchio is loved for himself, not what he should be or what he shouldn't be. And his wish to be a real boy still is the remaining theme. Signifies the wish to grow up, not to be good necessarily, but to evolve. So maybe your fairy tale has a different ending than you dreamed it would. It's not over. Keep dreaming. Keep listening. Keep creating the good. I have a family member, bless his heart, due to drugs in his early age, he's been unable to fit into society. You know, I used to read him fairy tales and give him a sense that he was loved. He has served 2 years in a correctional facility and for drugs, and currently lives on the street. Growing up can be hard to do. And some people, some men and women, they have trouble finding the path. They have trouble finding Jiminy Cricket. They blame their life on others. They become victims. They hate themselves. You know? It is for us to help. We can help. We can help those that have the addictions. We can help those to grow and know who they are. If they knew the truth of who they were, that they are spirit expressing in human form. We never stop learning, and there's always hope. The truth is there. You know, we're all in different stages of life. We are the beloved of our beloved. And I say that again. We're here for the delight of God. So life is moving. It's constantly changing. It's a breathing thing, in and out life. We have to be willing to constantly evolve. We have to be willing to change. So again, at any moment, be willing to give up who we are in order to become all that we can be. And that means getting rid of a lot of junk too. And thank you for that. And so it is.